Well, all week, we've been powering progress, diving into the electric vehicles, driving sustainable change in the Queen City.
Now, tonight, meteorologist Elisa Raffa and Climate Central takes a look at cars equally charged and how one formerly redlined neighborhood is making green waves toward a cleaner future.
This click is one of a kind.
A bit of R&D ourselves and gave them some input on the strength needed to pull this.
It charges EVs in the QC.
This is probably pushing out about 20 miles per hour, which is relatively on the, it's like a charge point, so to speak, and that you'd see at a Whole Foods or somewhere like that.
But it's not your ordinary parking lot charger.
You got a light, now you got this, so you're making this turning this into a multimodal operation.
The historic West End is leading the way, not just in Charlotte, but in the entire country. This charging station is one of the first of its kind, using electricity that turns on that light to also charge your electric vehicle.
You don't have to go trenching elsewhere for electricity, so that cuts down on the cost in a significant way and allows it to be deployed more frequently at a greater volume.
One of the leaders who made it happen is William Hughes Jr., but you wouldn't know it from how he introduces himself.
Taxpayer that lives in the neighborhood, lives in the community, and cares about the community.
The reality is he's an EV owner leading the charge in EJ, or Environmental Justice and Equity.
When I purchased my electric vehicle back in 2019, one of the first things that my wife and I would look at is the map of where electric vehicle charging stations are located in Charlotte. And if you look at that map, it's identical to the disparities of wealth and not wealth in Charlotte.
According to ChargeHub.com, Charlotte has 310 public charging station ports. 50% of them are free and none of them are on the west side, including the Washington or McCrory Heights areas. Most of the chargers are clustered in the Uptown and South End neighborhoods.
We know where this industry is going. We know where transportation is going. This EV movement is not a fluke. It's not something that's just going to go away. And are we going to have the infrastructure in these communities, in our community, that we need to facilitate transportation in 2022, 23, and going forward?
Along the lines of recognition justice, recognizing that there has been historical harm, systemic racism that has led to some of the most marginalized communities, most vulnerable communities to be shut out for some of the resources that we have in the community.
Dr. Michelle Zuniga is an urban planning and environmental justice expert at UNC Charlotte. She points out this division of resources has a long history.
In the 1950s, 1960s, many cities across the U.S. have a history of freeways being built in communities of color and low-income communities where there was least resistance, or in areas that city government, local government deemed blighted or in urban decay.
Follow the red lines on this 1966 map published in the Charlotte Observer detailing the proposed highway, one that Black residents of the McCrory Heights neighborhood wanted rerouted in 1962.
But historically, we also see that a lot of these communities were thriving. They had their own businesses, they had their own cultural centers. Residents were pretty happy with their neighbors and the community they had built together.
These communities that had been one now have west sides and south ends, separating people and segregating resources like grocery stores, sidewalks, green space, and today, EV chargers.
Transportation equals freedom.
Meg Fensel is the Engagement and Impact Director at Sustain Charlotte.
If you can't get all of the places you need to go, you don't really have access to all of the opportunities that you would have if you had a gas-powered car, if you can't get places in your electric vehicle.
Highways that created these gaps in opportunity also created gaps in health equity. CATS is piloting 18 battery electric buses over the next 18 months, with plans to transition to a fully clean, carbon-free fleet in these communities.
This pollution can seep in some of the households and foster some health implications such as asthma, cancer, diabetes. The list goes on, and in worst case scenarios, even mortality as well.
60% of the ozone-forming pollutants in Mecklenburg County come from the tailpipes of our cars.
Those impacts of climate change are disproportionately felt in lower-income communities,
putting the lungs of those living near the highway at greatest risk.
This also has the part of the county that has least access to fresh and healthy food. and the worst health outcomes.
Daisha Williams is the Environmental Justice Manager with Clean Air NC.
Even if you have an air monitor in Myers Park that's reading 56 and an air monitor in Historic West End that's reading 56, the impacts are going to be greater in the Historic West End.
The nonprofit focuses on poor air quality in these formerly redlined neighborhoods.
There are greater impacts that already exist within the community, so you're just compounding on impact and impact. And then again, you have the highway that cuts the community, which you don't see in other places of Charlotte.
That's why this is more than just an EV charger.
It also brings those opportunities here to the community. There's no reason that we should have EV charging stations in other areas of Charlotte and not here.
It symbolized a milestone and a greater body of work to make sure that we're not left behind in this movement, and then also to really set the stage for greater opportunities for job and employment in this corridor.
In the last year, both Arrival and Toyota announced new EV facilities in North Carolina.
The world will look at North Carolina as a hub of clean energy and clean energy jobs.
An investment worth billions, creating nearly 2,000 jobs across the state.
We can look at research and development opportunities, marketing opportunities around electric vehicles, batteries, and everything that comes with this industry. So the opportunities are really endless. We're just scratching the surface with this whole charger.
Community stories and solutions that can be the key, not just to the climate crisis, but to affordable housing, food deserts, and health equity.
I think we're proving the market is here. And I think it'll set the stage for proving the market that other things can come here as well, including the job opportunities, including the grocery store, including the things that we always ask for that we don't have here, the amenities that most neighborhoods have in Charlotte.
A neighborhood once redlined, making green waves towards a cleaner future.
We're moving in the right direction. 1, so now we need 2, 3, 4.
Because it's easy to start counting once you have one.
It's not really a race, it's a marathon, but we got to get there sooner rather than later.
Meteorologist Elisa Raffa, Queen City News.
And this is the final installment of our Powering Progress series. For an even more in-depth look at the research conducted by our team in Climate Central, just head to qcnews.com.